gentlemen. How are we doing today? Welcome back. This is episode 10 of the Voice of the Colts podcast. I'm your host, self-anointed voice of Colts Nation, and we are here with an emergency pod. I mean, this is a day after recording an entire podcast episode that lasted over an hour long of me just talking to myself. And yet, here I am, back again. Obviously, some breaking news that we're going to get into very shortly here, and some other things that I spoke about in yesterday's podcast that I felt like I left some things off the table or on the table that I really didn't discuss. And I kind of want to go back over those as well. There's no one I can't even speak. There's no one joining me today. So again, this is going to be another solo episode of the podcast. And we're going to obviously talk about the new quarterback in town. Not so new. Kind of old quarterback in town, actually. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Chris Ballard, because why the hell not, right? But before we get into all of that, if you're tuning in now, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate you guys all for choosing Voice of the Colts as your first podcast to listen to all things Colts, stories, news, narratives, and the like. So we appreciate you. And if you haven't done so yet and you really do enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell emoji thingy, and get notifications so you're notified when I create these random pop-up episodes that come out of nowhere. So that way you get all the up-to-date content from the Voice of the Colts. And if you want to join the conversation, once again, you go ahead and join in the Discord. The link will be in the description of this video. And if you join that Discord, I will be talking to you directly, and we will set up a time for you to be on the Discord, on the podcast, where you'll be able to voice your opinions on what's going on with the Indianapolis Colts. So there's that. Over the course of 24 hours after I hit the record button, or I hit the end record button, I was flooded with news and rumors. So as I was recording the episode, at that time, Riley Leonard was the only active quarterback on the roster. Tyler Warren was the emergency quarterback, and I think his name is Brett Ripon, is sitting in our practice squad, hasn't been elevated yet. After I hit end record and I posted my episode, we get news that, 44-year-old Philip Rivers wants to try out for the Colts and goes and flies to Indianapolis for a workout. That workout took place on today. I believe it took place today. And all the reports were, he can really throw the ball very well. And so then we were just waiting on, what are the Colts going to do? Are they actually going to sign 44-year-old Philip Rivers, who's older than our head coach, who was drafted? I saw a crazy tweet where the day he was drafted, Tanner Bortolini, our starting center, was like 1 year old, was a 1-year-old. The day that Philip Rivers was drafted to the NFL, just to give you an idea of how much of a dinosaur he is. Love Philip Rivers, Uncle Phil, he's back. Hopefully we get some really good mic'd up moments for that, but he's officially signed to the Colts practice squad. Now, there was also other news that broke then in regards to Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard apparently snuck his way onto the injury report. This is alongside a plethora of injuries like Charvarius Ward, who's on his third concussion protocol of the season, likely out for season, probably might call it a career at this point. I don't know how severe this concussion is, but it being the third one, I can't imagine a world where he actually comes back to play football. I think he wants to come back and play. I think any player at all, like you're just an athlete, you're a competitor, you're going to want to play. But there's definitely some tough decisions on the rise for him. I did discuss that one near the end of that podcast. And we might talk about that a little bit more later on in the show today. Also, Braden Smith is in concussion protocol. Haven't got word on how he's progressing through that. So possibly we don't see Braden Smith, our right tackle, starting in a game that we also might see Philip Rivers starting, which is recipe for disaster. But we'll get to that. Riley Leonard sneaks his way onto the injury report with a knee ligament strain. They haven't specified what ligament. I don't even know if they specified a knee. But that's what the report is. I think it's a PCL, actually. I do remember seeing like a PCL being reported. Don't quote me on this again. I'll get better with more accurate news and stuff. But I don't even think anything out right now is very accurate. It's so early. And knowing the Colts, they don't say anything. It's a knee. This is my impression of Shane Steichen telling us about an injury. Riley Leonard has a knee. I don't know any other details. That's my impression of Shane Steichen giving us an injury update on Riley Leonard. Yeah, he has a knee. Thanks for the update, dude. I had no idea. So he's on the injury report with a week-to-week status. Unsure if he's going to be good to go. Obviously, I think we're going to hear Ripon is going to get elevated from the practice squad. I would assume that is going to happen regardless of whether or not Philip Rivers suits up to play on Sunday. There is some other news that makes us think that it's very, maybe likely we see Philip Rivers. Not that it's very likely, but it looks to be that we are pushing for a start for Philip Rivers. The Colts normally on Wednesdays run a walkthrough, and then they do practices on Thursday and Friday. This week, they're running practices Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I'll keep you guys up to date, maybe via tweets or some Instagram or TikTok stories, as far as whether or not he practiced, how he looked in practice, all those kind of things. We'll be following that, obviously, very closely leading up to Sunday's game in Seattle. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, we're really going full circle here. I can't speak. I just had a long work day, guys. I just got off of work, threw my Colts gear on, turned the camera on, and I hit record. So forgive me if I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. When I first got the news, my immediate reaction was, well, this is comical. This is kind of funny. Like, of course, we're calling anyone and everyone to come in. Did I think that he was actually going to show up, work out, and be in football shape to sign with the team? No, I genuinely, when I read it, I thought, this is good for headlines. This is good for storytelling. This isn't real life. As I sat with the news a little longer, and obviously we then signed him, and I had to really come to terms with, hey, Philip Rivers might be a starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts again, a couple thoughts ran through my mind. The first one was, there is a silver lining to this. There is a silver lining to this. The Colts are sitting at now their 14th. No, sorry. Did Riley Leonard ever start a football game for the Indianapolis Colts? I'm going to look into this really quickly. Guys, Riley Leonard would have been the 15th starter for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't believe he started, though. I don't believe he started a game this season. So, no, he didn't start because he just played in the first quarter and he never started a game this season. Yeah, that's actually out of the water. So, right now we're at 13 quarterbacks have started for the Indianapolis Colts since the start of the 2017 season, right? We've had Scott Tolzien started one game for us. Then we had Andrew Luck. Then we had Jacoby Brissett. Then we had Brian Hoyer. Then we had Philip Rivers. Then we had Carson Wentz. Then we had Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, Nick Foles. Then we had Gardner Minshew. Then we had Anthony Richardson. Then we had Joe Flacco. Then we had Daniel Jones. That's our starting quarterback list. And now, obviously, Riley Leonard has officially suited up for the Indianapolis Colts. Hasn't started a game. At the very least, we're not hitting number 15. Like, regardless of whether or not Riley starts, Riley would be number 14, I believe. And then Philip Rivers would then come in most likely. At least we don't hit 15. Riley Leonard would be number 14 on that list. 14 quarterbacks that have started for the Indianapolis Colts in, 8 years? Yeah, this is a joke. This is a joke. But it's not all bad. Obviously, we had a great time with Philip Rivers 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, whatever it was. It was the 2020 COVID season when we had Philip Rivers. And oddly enough, it's the last time we went to the playoffs. And we have some unfinished business. So I got to thinking, best case scenario. Best case scenario. Here it is. You guys ready for this? Best case scenario, Indianapolis Colts win out. Obviously, that's best case scenario. We win out. We make the playoffs. And the Colts get their revenge game on the Buffalo Bills. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. If Phillip Rivers suits up for the Colts and wins a playoff game against the Bills, or anyone at all for that matter, I would just really love it if it was the Bills. It would be such a full circle moment. But if he makes it to the playoffs, and he gets us to the playoffs and wins a playoff game miraculously, yeah, send him to the Hall of Fame right now. Don't reset the clock. There's no resetting the 5-year window. You induct him before the clock hits 0 on that game. You induct him that moment, before the clock even hits 0. You stop the game before, when they line up in victory formation. Referees are blowing their whistle, waving their arms, right? The Indianapolis Colts have now inducted Phillip Rivers into the NFL Hall of Fame. You may now kneel the ball. Go ahead. Boom. Blow the whistle, then he kneels it. Game's over. He's in the Hall of Fame. That's how it should go. That's how it should go. That's how crazy it would be. Obviously, I don't really see it happening. I do have to update my prediction from yesterday just a little bit, pending who plays, right? Obviously, if Riley Leonard plays, then we're going to stick with the prediction I made on Monday. If Phillip Rivers plays, I'll have another prediction for you guys at the end of this episode, okay? But yeah, Phillip Rivers is very likely going to be our starting quarterback in the year 2025, in December of 2025. 4.5, 5 years after his last football game. This is unbelievable, dude. This is absolutely unbelievable that this is our life right now. They called Andrew Luck, and I believe they called Ryan Tannehill and maybe Derek Carr. They called a few people. They called a few people up, and I think the only one that really took the call there was Phillip Rivers. So these are the cards that we're dealt with. These are the cards that we're dealt with. Now, Chris Ballard is obviously doing everything he can to keep this together. He's mortgaged our future on this team that we have right here to win. I talked about Chris Ballard, about how I don't think he should be fired on last episode. The last 2 episodes I've discussed this. And I never really gave any credence to the fire Chris Ballard crowd. And I feel that's a little intellectually dishonest of me to do. It makes it feel like I'm telling you guys, or calling you guys stupid, and I don't believe that. Like I said, I think it's very possible he gets fired, and I think for the reason that you all think he should be fired. We've won no playoff games. We've been to the playoffs, I think, once, maybe twice. I don't recall if he was there. I think he was there for the Andrew Luck season, and we did go to the playoffs there. So there's that. So we made the playoff. We had 2 playoff appearances, 0 AFC South titles, and just have nothing to show for it. Like, overall team success, like, you're just not going to stick around that long. Personally, I don't think it's his fault. Personally, I think it's a mistake to fire him. But I also can't make a strong enough, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't made a strong enough argument that beats, well, there's no team success. So, sure, he might lose his job, which I think is the reason why he mortgaged the future for this. It's the reason why any GM who knows his job is all but gone would make a move like this. You don't necessarily, I mean, I think people read it as they love Daniel Jones this much that they're going to trade away their 2 first-round picks because they think they found their guy. I don't think anyone's convinced themselves that they found their guy in Daniel Jones. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think that this was hey, you know what? We need Sauce so bad, and these 2 first-round picks, I'll probably won't be around to use them anyway. I'm really good in the mid-round if I do happen to keep my job. I need this now. The secondary has been Swiss cheese. We lost Xavier earlier in the season. This was the desperation move to make something happen. for the Indianapolis Colts, for Chris Ballard specifically. So this is it. So this is what it is. So this is why they're going after Phillip Rivers now, because hey, listen, if Riley Leonard can't go, I don't think they want to trot Ripon out there. That's how little they think of him. He's been sitting on the practice squad, hasn't been elevated, and they went and signed a guy, Phillip Rivers, who hasn't played in 4.5 years. Now they're extending practices, and it looks like they're trying to fast track him into it, and it makes sense because, well, he understands the offense better than anyone. Ripon has not been here that long. Phillip Rivers has worked under Shane Steichen forever. As a matter of fact, he's coaching a high school football team that runs the Colts offense. And so it makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways. So as the news started to settle down, I started to come to terms with it. I started to come to terms with this idea that we're going to see Phillip Rivers be our quarterback this season. And he's going to start. And who knows, maybe we win football games, maybe we don't. I'm not too crazy about it. But there was also a second thing that caught my attention about Phillip Rivers signing. Now, before the news broke that we had signed him, because this was late last night, I was burning the midnight oil, watching highlights of Riley Leonard. Forgive me if I keep forgetting his name. It takes me a second to come back to terms with the fact that that's my quarterback right now, you know?
It's my quarterback.
It's my quarterback, man. Riley Leonard, that's my quarterback. I wanted to see a little bit more because I didn't really know much about him. I mean, I know he came from Notre Dame. I know he was a run-first quarterback. I never really watched a lot of tape or film on him. So I wanted to see some things. And late last night, I started watching The Quarterback Class, which is a series on Barstool hosted by John Gruden, our favorite coach ever, right? We all love John Gruden. And he did the quarterback class. I've seen clips of Riley Leonard's episode in the past, but I never actually clicked and watched it because, in my opinion, it was kind of irrelevant. I didn't think I would ever need to know more about Riley Leonard. But here we are, December 7th? December 9th? I'm way off. December 9th, and Riley Leonard, as it stands, is still kind of the quarterback that's heading into Sunday until they announce something different, until they announce that he's out and maybe Phillip Rivers is starting. Something I found very interesting about that was Phillip Rivers lives maybe 3 minutes away from Riley Leonard and actually trained Riley Leonard. And something Gruden mentioned was they have very similar releases, and that might have something to do with the fact that Phillip Rivers trained him. He goes to Phillip Rivers for a lot. He's talked to him many times. That's a mentor to him. So I think this signing was more twofold than we are giving it credit for. This was not just a desperation play to get a quarterback that out of nowhere, like just sign a guy to throw in there, throw into the fire and pray for the best. It also made sense that it was Phillip Rivers because the other guy in the room has a very good relationship with Rivers. So even if Rivers isn't the guy playing per se, we at least have a guy that's there with him, coaching him up, helping him out, mentoring him, walking him through the reps, that knows this offense very well and can help him prepare even better, as well as obviously we talked about Daniel Jones helping him prepare. We talked about that on the last episode. So that is another benefit to Phillip Rivers signing with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm trying to see the bright side here. Because as it stands now, the Colts aren't mathematically out of the playoffs yet. So as doom and gloom as we want it to be, they're not out of the playoffs yet. Which is good news for, guys like Chris Ballard. Good news for guys like Shane Steichen. But ultimately, this is our Hail Mary. This is our Hail Mary. I think the Colts absolutely have to win. They have to win every game for the rest of the year, essentially. They don't have to win to make the playoffs, but every game is a must-win. That's kind of what I should have said. Every game is a must-win for them going forward into this. I kind of jumped topics a lot, especially because I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't write any of this down. This is a as advertised emergency podcast pop-up episode. I quite literally did not prepare anything for this podcast. So I might be scrambling a little bit. So let me go back to the point on Chris Ballard with the potential firing of Chris Ballard. Now, Chris Ballard, I went through the long-winded conversation of all the player acquisition he's done and how good he's built this roster and why I don't think he should be fired. I mentioned briefly that I think that there's a lot of credence to the conversation about firing him. You guys aren't crazy or stupid for mentioning it. He obviously hasn't had the success with this team that you would look for. I think the tough part about this is, number one, I don't know who would be better in this situation. And I talked a little bit about the situation a new GM would walk into on yesterday's episode, where I said, there's not a lot of wiggle room for them to really get their fingerprints on this team until the end of next season. So, not this offseason. The next offseason would be when they can actually start to create something. So it's a little difficult. It's a little difficult for me to imagine firing Chris Ballard this year, at least, because you're bringing a guy that's not gonna do anything. Like it's just he's not gonna have any kind of tangible impact that you'd like to see. So I don't really see it. I don't really see it happening this year. It may happen next year. I don't know for sure. We'll obviously get more information as time goes on. But I will agree that he is on, at the very least, a warm seat, a very warm seat, a very close to hot seat. It's not scalding, but it's as close to hot as it can be. And so we'll see in those coming weeks. I don't really have much more on Chris Ballard that I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but again, I'm not totally prepared for this. This is more of the emergency podcast about the quarterback. So going back to the quarterback, Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard has this attitude to him. He's got this attitude to him, this competitive edge, this competitive fire that I saw and that I hear when I listen to him. And I'm not going to lie. I was fighting the urge to get fired up. In my heart of hearts, I've been watching the Colts for a very long time. And outside of Peyton Manning and outside of Andrew Luck, I have not trusted an Indianapolis Colts quarterback ever. There hasn't been a quarterback I've trusted. I've believed that we could win with any quarterback, and I still believe that right now. As doom and gloom as it may seem, I think the Colts as a whole roster have such a good, well-built roster. And they're well coached and they have a good head coach with a good game plan, that I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility for us to beat anyone. I think they really have that good of a roster. The quarterback has this innate and uniquely innate ability to absolutely tank that regardless. So when I don't trust a quarterback, I feel a little uneasy when there's moments like the whole beginning of this season where I was raving about Daniel Jones, because I know in my heart, deep in my heart, it's fool's gold. I don't actually trust the quarterback. I'm enjoying the fruits of Chris Ballard's labor. He put the work into building this team brick by brick, and this roster looks as good as it does, and we can easily be fooled into thinking anybody is good. Riley Leonard had some flashes of some very good throws in that Jacksonville Jaguars game, right? And I think we can all agree. I mean, we saw the throw to Michael Pittman that got called back for an OPI that we all know was not an OPI. We saw the multiple throws to Alec Pierce he had. There was a really good throw to Josh Downs. He had some really, really good throws and showed some really good talent. And then in the interview, sounded like, for the most part, at least until the question we covered in the episode yesterday, he sounded confident in himself. I watched that quarterback class with John Gruden, and he has this swagger, this moxie to him that he is a competitor, a fierce guy. He's going to fight no matter what. It's all about the wins, which you guys know how I feel about that, because that is your responsibility as a quarterback. Part of me, late last night, burning that midnight oil, was fighting the urge to get hyped up about Riley Leonard. I'm going to keep fighting it until he gives me a reason to stop fighting it. If he can put together, if Riley Leonard plays this game against Seattle and somehow manages to, put 30 points on the board like the Colts are used to seeing, and we come away with a win on the road in Seattle, I think I'll stop fighting it. I think I'll start the Riley Leonard hype train. I'll start the beginning. Like I'm kind of lighting what I'm doing right now is I'm laying out the firewood. I haven't sparked anything yet. I haven't sparked the fire yet. But if he goes into Seattle and does that, handles business, and we win that football game, I'm sparking that fire, and I'm all Riley Leonard hype for the rest of the season. And I think that Riley Leonard magic is going to take us to the playoffs. Obviously, the knee is a concern, and we'll see how he goes, how he progresses. I think regardless of who we trot out there, whether it's Riley Leonard or, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but even if it's Phillip Rivers, I think the Colts have a chance to win. Now, I predicted the Colts getting blown out. That's because that's what I think is more likely to happen. For all of you people that are going to watch the clips and be like, this guy's an idiot. He thinks that the Colts are going to win games. I predicted the Seahawks would win because I think that's the more likely scenario, right? And I just like to be right sometimes. Sometimes we just like to be right. So I sided with that. But that doesn't mean I don't think the Colts can win. And I'm going to be rooting for us to win. I think it's very possible. And I think that Phillip Rivers, your only real concern is going to be how much time he's going to have in the pocket. I think we would probably run the football a lot more than we're used to if Phillip Rivers is the quarterback, which you guys know me by now. I don't love that idea. Never have, I never will. If you can't win the game throwing the football, throw the playoffs away. You're not going anywhere. Your team is not a Super Bowl contender if you cannot throw the football. That's my biggest concern there, is really how much time Phillip Rivers has. But I'll be honest, as much as Colts fans have hated on our offensive line over the past few weeks, I went back and I watched some more film on them. And I got to be honest with you. Outside of a handful of plays, and there were a handful, I am not going to say that they were great. The Colts offensive line has done a pretty good job of keeping our quarterback upright. Like, sure, there's pressures here and there, and I wouldn't say there was an ungodly amount of pressures genuinely in any game that we've played. It's just we tend to focus on them a lot more because we haven't successfully made plays against the pressure over the last 5 weeks. We've looked like a very bad football team against the pressure in the last 5 weeks. I will never, ever, ever go become this, how do I put this? I will never turn on our offensive line unit because they gave up a bunch of pressures, right? Like, this is a fantastic unit that we have in Indianapolis. If they're not perfect, I'm okay with them being not perfect. What I'm noticing is the Colts fans that are against our offensive line just don't want to blame the quarterback, which I find redundant and crazy. I'm saying this, which I find I'm being redundant is what I meant to say. I know I'm being redundant here. I find it crazy because in what world do you think a quarterback is a very good quarterback if he needs his offensive line to be perfect? That doesn't make sense. That's not a good quarterback, like, at all. And go look around the league. What offensive line in the league has been perfect this year? None. So, yes, it hasn't always been pretty with our offensive line, but it also never really was ugly, at least not as ugly as some people like to make it seem. So I think Phillip Rivers actually does have a good chance of being successful with this offensive line. I do. I genuinely do. I think they have a good chance of being successful with this offensive line. I think they're going to have to rely on quick passes a lot more. They're obviously going to continue to run the RPO heavily. The only time I think our game plan would change drastically, I think, is if Riley Leonard plays. And the reason I think it changes drastically if Riley Leonard plays is because we have not run any designed quarterback runs like all year long. It's not really been our thing. If the Colts want any form of success with Riley Leonard at quarterback, we have to run some designed runs with him. Utilize his strength. We'll see what Shane Steichen has built up for him there, but I just don't see it being realistic that we win a football game with Riley Leonard if he is just running the same game plan as Daniel Jones. I think we have a better chance of winning if we run the same plan as Daniel Jones, Phillip Rivers. So it'll be interesting to see. As the week progresses, we'll find out who our quarterback is. And as promised, I'll give you guys my prediction. If I told you guys on yesterday's episode what my prediction was if Riley Leonard is our quarterback, I said, and I will double check this. I clipped it already, guys. So the prediction for the Seahawks for this game for Riley Leonard is not going to get clipped here. Yesterday, I believe I said 37-13 was the score, was my score prediction. And I believe I said Riley Leonard's going to throw 2 picks. I believe I said he's going to have a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown. We're going to go for 2 and we're not going to make it. And that's how we get 13 points. And I think I said somewhere along the lines of like 160 yards passing. If Phillip Rivers plays in Seattle on Sunday, my official prediction for this football game is Seattle Seahawks win 37-16. I gave us 3 extra points versus what I said with Riley Leonard. So we'll lose 37-16. We'll get an extra field goal out of it. I think Phillip Rivers throws 2 interceptions. I'll give him a touchdown. 1 touchdown passing. I think it'll go to Michael Pittman Jr. I think he'll throw for 215 yards. His first game. It's his first game in 4.5 years, and he's going to throw 215 yards. I don't know why I'm like doing the numbers with my hand either. This is the delusion speaking. 215 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions for Phillip Rivers. We lose 37-16. Please drop your predictions in the comments below. And again, if you guys are on the money or close enough, I'll feature you guys on the episode on Monday following the Colts game. Man, once again, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning into the podcast. Again, this was an emergency episode. And if you like the content, obviously you know what to do. You're going to like, you're going to comment, you're going to subscribe, you're going to hit the little notification button so you get notices when I post. And follow me on all the other social media so you get all the fun clips as well. And join the Discord if you want to join the conversation. Talk all things Colts. With that being said, I will bid you guys adieu. Peace.